Right now, you are sure of one thing. You are the same person who woke up this morning, the same memories, the same body. But imagine every piece of that body and mind slowly swapped out, one at a time. At what point, if ever, did something die? And why does the answer feel stranger than you expected? Here is the concrete image. After the hero Theseus returned to Athens, the Athenians kept his ship. They moored it in the harbor, maintained it as a monument, returned to it year after year. But wood rots. So whenever a plank decayed beyond saving, they pulled it out and slotted a fresh one in. This went on for centuries. The writer Plutarch, recording this in his Life of Theseus around the 1st century, noted that the ship had become a standing example among the philosophers. One side held that the ship remained the same. The other contended that it did not. That is the whole puzzle right there, planted in a harbor 2,000 years ago. Note what Plutarch is doing. He is not describing what Theseus's contemporaries believed. He is a historian, reporting a debate that philosophers were already having in his own time, and finding the preserved ship a useful anchor for it. The ship had 30 oars and had returned from Crete, from the famous voyage to the labyrinth and back. But the mythology is just the backdrop. What matters is the vessel sitting in the harbor, growing more patched and replaced with every passing decade, and the question it quietly put to everyone who looked at it. If the planks are all gone, the beams replaced, the oars swapped out, the sails renewed, what exactly are you honoring when you call it Theseus's ship? Something remained, something was lost. The trouble is deciding which of those stories is true. Before you can answer that, you need to get the question precise, because there are actually two very different things the word same can mean, and letting them blur together is how the puzzle loses its bite. The first sense is qualitative sameness. This means being very much alike, resembling the original closely enough that you would call it a match. A perfect replica in dry dock, built from new timber to the original blueprints, would be qualitatively identical to the old ship. Same number of oars, same dimensions, same oak grain. But you would not say it is Theseus's ship. Not really. Not the one. The second sense is numerical identity. This means being one and the same thing over time, literally continuous with the original, not just like it, but actually it. Your childhood teddy bear, mended and worn, is the same bear, not because it looks new, but because it is the one you had. A guitar repaired and restrung across decades is the same guitar the musician played on their first night, numerically one, not merely similar. The puzzle asks about numerical identity. Is the patched ship literally, continuously, the same vessel Theseus sailed? The two senses pull apart the moment you take them seriously. A perfect copy could be qualitatively better than the original, but numerically a stranger. The original, worn and replaced, could be numerically the same ship, but qualitatively unrecognizable. Once you see the gap between those two, the question sharpens into something philosophers call the problem of diachronic identity, which just means the problem of being the same thing across time. Here is where it gets genuinely hard. This twist is not ancient, and it is important to say that plainly. It comes from the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes in his book De Corpore, published in 1655, roughly 15 centuries after Plutarch wrote. And it is a knife. Hobbes asks you to imagine something that was not in the original story. Suppose someone followed the maintenance crew around, year after year, and saved every discarded plank. Every rotted timber pulled out and replaced, they collected and stored. And then, when the work was done and the old ship fully renewed, they reassembled all those original pieces into a second ship. Now you have two vessels. One is the continuously maintained ship in the harbor, never once broken apart, always moored, always Theseus's ship in the eyes of the Athenians who tended it. The other is assembled entirely from the original wood, every plank and beam as old as the voyage from Crete. Which one is the real Ship of Theseus? Hobbes pressed the dilemma hard. If both ships are the same as the original, then they are the same as each other. But they are clearly two different ships, which is absurd. He leaned toward the continuously maintained ship, favoring what you might call unbroken presence in the world, the thread of spatio-temporal continuity, the vessel that was never taken apart. But he presented that as his view, not as a resolution that ends the debate. The reassembly problem simply makes the original puzzle harder. Now you have two rival claimants, and no obvious way to crown either one. Now here is the turn, and it is aimed directly at you. Most of your body's matter cycles out over the years. Cells divide and die and are replaced. The lining of your gut renews itself in days. Bone is constantly remodeled. Red blood cells live for roughly 4 months. Much of what you are materially is a slow and ongoing plank swap. You are, in a real sense, a ship of Theseus. But be careful here, because the version you have probably heard, that every single cell in your body is replaced every 7 years, is too clean to be true. Several things in you are essentially as old as you are. The neurons in your cerebral cortex are generated almost entirely before birth and are not replaced across a lifetime. The proteins in the core of your eye's lens show no measurable carbon turnover after they form. Your tooth enamel is, chemically, as ancient as your childhood. So you are neither fully renewed nor fixed. You are a patchwork, some parts cycling constantly, others carried from the very beginning, almost like original planks no one ever swapped out. And that makes the question cut deeper. If the Ship of Theseus is in doubt numerically, what makes you the same person as the child in your oldest photograph? Not the matter, or not all of it. Not the cells, or not all of them. Something else is doing the work of holding the identity together across time. But what? Philosophers have spent centuries answering that, and the honest landing is that they still disagree. It is worth laying out the serious contenders, because none of them is obviously right. The first is psychological continuity, an idea rooted in John Locke's essay concerning human understanding from 1690, and developed by thinkers like Derek Parfit in the 20th century. On this view, you persist as an overlapping chain of memories, beliefs, and character, not the parts, but the pattern. The person reading this is continuous with the child in the photograph because a thread of connected experience runs between them. The second view says what carries you across is bodily or biological continuity. You are one living organism, and that organism persists as long as the life does, the way a river is still the same river even as its water changes. The third view, sometimes called the four-dimensional account, says you are not a thing that travels through time, but the whole sequence of your time slices taken together, the ship across its entire history, from the first voyage to the last plank. And then there is a fourth answer, quieter and more unsettling than the others. Maybe the question has no hidden fact waiting to be discovered. Maybe same is partly a decision about how we are using the word, not a lock with a key. The philosopher and the harbor keeper might simply be drawing the boundary of identity differently, and neither is wrong exactly, because the boundary was never fixed to begin with. What that leaves you with is not a resolution. It leaves you with a better picture of how fragile the thing you call yourself actually is. So the Ship of Theseus is still in the harbor, and no one has settled it. Plutarch found the puzzle in a maintained vessel. Hobbes sharpened it with a second ship. Your body made it personal. Memory, biology, a whole life as one sequence. Or no hidden fact at all, these remain in genuine competition. What the puzzle reveals is that your ordinary idea of being the same thing over time is vaguer than you assumed. When you picture who you were 10 years ago, is that still you? Something continuous with you? Or something else? Tell me below. Subscribe and stay curious.